Good evening. I call to order this meeting of the Gladstone City Council work session for Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. It's 5:31 p.m. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Councillor Huckabee.
Present.
Councillor Mitchell.
Present.
Councillor Blau.
Present.
Councillor Labonte.
Present.
Councillor Farley. Councillor Garlington.
Present.
Mayor Milch.
Present. Let us stand for the flag salute, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll open this as we always do. The City of Gladstone is abiding by guidelines set forth in House Bill 2560, which requires the governing body of the public body, to the extent reasonably possible, to make all meetings accessible remotely through technological means and provide opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony during meetings to the extent in-person oral and written testimony is allowed. Therefore, this meeting will be open to the public both in person and virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom instructions are on the agenda to the meeting. The public is welcome to attend a work session in person or online. However, no public comment will be allowed. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. One, to hear a recommendation from the Gladstone Library Blue Ribbon Committee. Second, to get an update on the Gladstone Community Festival. And third, to review the City of Gladstone's proposed communication guide. So item 1, I see John Lagarza here. I see Administrator Betts here.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I'm going to hand it over to our Economic Development Consultant, John Lagarza, to give you an overview of what the Blue Ribbon Committee's recommendation was. And tonight we also have Kathy Wiseman with us, who's a resident on that committee.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be here at this work session. Just to give you kind of a brief overview, and then I'll let Kathy, who is involved in our Blue Ribbon Committee, talk a little bit more. But from the standpoint of, just really appreciate working with everyone. We started, I think, almost March, April last year, doing the community survey with the community, getting the word out about this project here, walking up and down Portland Avenue, McLaughlin Avenue. So really getting engagement from the community. We also reached out at several of the park events over the year. So that was very successful from that standpoint. And then I want to thank all of you because you came to the open house that we had there. So we had a good involvement of the community coming and participating in that. And then we came forward with you to set up this Blue Ribbon Committee to really look at and review the proposal that came in here that you have for you tonight. And through that, we met 3 times with the Blue Ribbon Committee. And I got to say, the proposal that's in front of you tonight by Weldon Development, the Blue Ribbon Committee reviewed that, all participated in it, voted very heavily in favor of recommending to City Council to think about directing staff to move forward with that. So here tonight to get feedback, to come from you, from the council, to consider putting this forward for staff direction. But, I do say the proposal checks a lot of the boxes that we were looking for, that's for sure. And it's a great opportunity to think about how we activate the other end of Portland Avenue, the opportunity of jobs coming into that area, and then also the ability to have people on our main street in the afternoons too is important there. I don't know if you got a chance to visit some of the other sites that Weldon did, but the city of Canby just recently did the same thing. They repositioned their old library. That's very successful. If you go over there, and there's probably 200 to 300 people that are visiting at that site. It's fantastic. I see a lot of families. I always say that, when I took my kids out when they were younger, we kind of went to a restaurant. Seems like this generation now goes and they want to have different spots to go and see. So I think it's a really nice fit there, and I like the adaptive reuse that. So with that, Kathy, I'll let you talk a little bit there, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I appreciated being able to participate in all the aspects of this committee. It means a lot to our citizens to have the opportunity to come and look at the sites and read the information and then come and make a recommendation to you, because we live here and we're very excited about this proposal. I attended all the meetings and read carefully all the written material, asked John a lot of questions, who was very helpful, and Haley as well. I went to the open house at the library and I visited both sites of the Weldon Corporation, both in Oregon City, and I watched that property be built since I worked in Oregon City. So I can speak very clearly about them changing a difficult site, which had no foot traffic, to becoming an economic driver for that corner spot, which then prompted better businesses, better quality businesses. Corner 14 came in. So that turned that spot into a heavily trafficked area for families and opportunities to meet and gather. So that's been very successful. And the Canby property, as John said, was a former library. And that is a spectacular site, which has also prompted some significant economic development in that community. So they have a really good track record. This building, what our committee really liked is that they would preserve the building and make it, of course, they would improve it. It's in pretty rough shape, but it maintains the quality and integrity of that original building once they're finished with it. It's a lovely building, a unique building, and we should keep it here. It's beautiful. And it brings back a lot of family interaction and memories. And I think people will be glad to come there and see it continue to live on that block. We discussed the pros and cons of this opportunity. And by and large, our group felt very confident that this would be a positive upgrade to our Main Street. Except Andrew, he wanted a different color, which I disagreed with, but that was it.
And we had a horrible argument over it. No, I just like brighter colors that match our city's thing, but that's fine.
Yeah, I noticed there is sort of a change in the trend of colors of things these days. And, sometimes you see main streets with a lot of small buildings that are each different colored, and it really adds, a different flavor to it. But then the Gladstone's restaurant down the street, our new library, the proposed design for this building, it seems like it's all that black and gray trend that everybody's into these days. But, buildings can be repainted and styles change. And so I think what you brought up, the preservation of that building, is important. I was reading some articles today about how people get a nostalgic attachment to older buildings in their community. And now I'm sure that Administrator Betts and Recorder Tammy Bannock feel the loss of that old City Hall building that we used to be in. That's not a place where I heard people say, gee, it's really sad to see this place go. It did have, there was a quality to it. You could walk in off the street and go right into the water department and talk directly to the staff there. There was a little bit more personable, than the design we have here, which sort of separates people a little bit from the inner workings of the building. But the library, I think back to about a year and a half ago when we had the grand opening, and I did a speech. And one of the things I mentioned was that as we talked about this new library opening on social media, we started to hear from people who had lived in Gladstone many, many years ago. They could still remember the name of the first librarian at the library when it was in the basement of the old City Hall. And then the first librarian of the at the library site when it was moved into this building that we're talking about now. People have a nostalgic connection to a building. And I think, although I liked, the concept of another proposal that came in through this process, that would have involved tearing this building down and starting new. So I think, Kathy, what you've said about the value of preserving this building, I think that's one of the real high components of this proposal. And it's unfortunate that it took this community so long to reach a consensus about what to do about a library. And during that whole time, we said, well, we're going to get a new library, so there's no point in putting any money into this one. And so we watched it deteriorate. But for somebody to say, I'd like to bring that back to something close to what it was, is a real win for the community beyond what it could be in this new. So I want to get feedback from council members on this approach, and if you've had a chance, and to hear from you if you visited the other businesses by the same company.
I'll start. I
Yeah.
did not visit the other buildings, just did not fit into my schedule, unfortunately. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was the sale price of the building itself. I was just a little bit shocked that we were going at that rate at $50,000. I just want to make sure that we're talking openly about that. It will probably, can't be the only one that says, wow, that's all we sold it for. What was that? Was there something else happening there? And I would have to say from my own perspective, yeah, what's happening there is somebody's taking basically a building that needs a lot of work and really putting a lot of money into it. Anybody else want to add to that so that we're really out in the open about it?
I think that John can also offer some insights into the return on investment. And let's play this out a little bit. Let's say the council moves forward with this agreement. In 2 or 3 years, he sells the property for a much higher value. But John can talk to you about what that does to the values in the area as well. So John, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Councilor Garlington. I appreciate we're being transparent. One of the things that we all recognize and appreciate you bringing this up, the condition of the existing library needs a lot of investment, right? And so naturally when a developer looks at that, they're going to have to go in and redo the roof. We all went in and we saw the roof where we had the leaks coming in. And then we also saw the envelope, which is the shell of the building, right? So that had water intrusion in there. And we all know there's some asbestos that has to be removed inside of the building too. So the exterior shell, the developer is going to be taking it back to basically the frame and doing the reinvestment of making that so it's waterproof condition, right? For here in the, but the other thing is that the life safety system, the fire suppression system, the HVAC inside, those are all elements that need to be updated, right? So that again is a cost. So I do recognize the price point that they had, but this is also when they look at that, they take that into consideration on the discount of the price. And I think that's a fair price that they're offering us from that standpoint. If we were to try and go and do that ourselves, go out and do bully wages, go out and do all those improvements to be able to do that, it would cost us a lot more. So having a private developer to be able to come in and invest that money in there to make this an adaptive reuse is a good investment. You could use some funds. To City Manager Jacqueline's point is, when this finishes, this will probably come in at an assessed value, probably around 1.5, maybe $2 million, right? So that property tax revenue, we haven't been getting any property tax revenue on this building since we've owned the property, right? So those funds are going to come back into the TIF district, right? So we're going to be able to have reoccurring revenue that comes in there. Plus, if like what city manager Betts talked about is if that sells, right, we're going to have another higher appraised value in that area in the neighborhood there. So overall, the investment that we're going to gain here as a community, we're going to gain as a city property tax revenue that we've never received. That's beneficial. We're going to gain 11 jobs in the community, which is great. But then our business owners are going to gain dollars being spent for other businesses. And we want our businesses to be prosperous and have tourism traction. If you go over to Canby, I did this and I walked around. There was a lady next door. She has an interior design business right next to the Canby library brewery like this. And I went in and I talked to her and I said, how's business for you? She says, once this opened, I cannot tell you how much foot traffic I've received in the businesses that are coming in to visit me. Okay. So, people go down, they spend the evening, they float around. And that's what we want. We want those businesses to be prosperous, and we want like the pizza spot and the coffee shop and those to people congregate, right? And create that action and activity down there. So I think we gain on a lot of values. We gain property tax revenue, we gain job creation, and then our business owners, we gain in keeping money in our business downtown instead of having that leakage and going outside. So all that payback is going to be beneficial for us all. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of what a great committee we had working on this. I watched some of the meetings and listened to the questions and the comments, and we had people that had experience with adaptive reuse of a building somewhere, a historic building or something with some significance to make it a business. We had people that understood the whole of that whole building process and some of the financial difficulties or financing difficulties that people face. And they brought all that knowledge into making a very healthy group decision. And Andrew, you've worked in the downtown area. You know a little bit about how the business owners feel about things, and just what you shared tonight, John. So it was really exciting to see the public engage in that process and come up with such a good, wide-ranging knowledge that contributed to a real strong decision here.
And I'm hoping that Councilor Labonte will expand a little bit about a comment he made in regards to, it felt like his heart was in this proposal. And I think that's very important for you to share, Andrew.
Yeah. And then I'll touch on some of the things that maybe aren't 100% on the mark for this project, and want to shed light on some of the other ideas that folks had there too. But in reading the proposal, it was in the world of AI and all of that, you could really, and I would encourage you all to do it, and maybe you'll have the same experience. You could feel like the heart in there. It was more of a personal thing. That this particular individual spent plenty of time in that library as a child, as a member of the community, and that's one thing that as I was reading through, in comparison to other things I've read, in these types of, committees or whatever, it felt different. There was heart there. It felt real, and it felt like there was a little bit of passion there, and that alone would have been like, okay, cool, someone's excited about this thing. But knowing that they've done other projects, it puts a little more meat on the bones, I think. So no, that was pretty good. If I can just mention some of the folks there were some folks that weren't all in necessarily, and some of the things that this project maybe doesn't totally hit on. Not to say that, I support this, I recommend it, but it doesn't provide housing. And there is some question about, I thought there was supposed to be like more retail or more of that going on, which the potential still exists. That it can morph into different things or take on different elements. And as far as local business folks that I've had a chance to talk to, and I've always found it interesting talking to folks in small towns and different parts of the country, where there's kind of a two different thought process. I find there's some folks who are like, oh, another restaurant, or and then it's going to take business from this restaurant, and it's saturation, it's too much, and I get that.
Yeah.
And then I'm always surprised, initially I was surprised the first time I heard a business owner friend of mine who was had a coffee shop, and Starbucks was coming in, and he's like, great, that's awesome. The more businesses we have down here, the more foot traffic, the more action. So there are definitely different ways of looking at this. But at the end of the day, it's better than an empty building. And I love the fact that we're recycling, in a sense, the old building. And, I'm kind of a sucker for historical buildings, for sure, because I think that really, is in a lot of ways that important to communities, at least to me. So to be able to still have that library, and who knows, 5-10 years, maybe something else happens, but at least we're keeping the integrity of the building, and we have some heart behind the project. And I think the majority of the community is behind it. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you, Jackie.
Maria, go ahead.
I have a clarifying question about the 1-7 part 7A, and also the rendering. It says single story building. So are we counting it as single story, or are they counting it as single story? Because there is that upper above on two sides, and then the basement, two sides of the basement. And on the renderings, it looks like that space up above is going to be utilized. So,
Yeah, thank you. And I just, one thing quickly, I would want to say back to Council Monte, but Bryce and his dad, what was impressive is they stayed there at the open house for the whole 2 hours, and you could see the connection there. They're looking to leave the building as the shell, as the frame, so that upper space and lower space. And I think that's going to really be able to, one of the things that we talk with the Blue Ribbon Committee is just also thinking about how we could maybe work with them and having those for some meeting spaces or different spaces for the community. So I think that's something as we work through the development agreement with them to think about, like how maybe we could participate in helping program some of those areas from that standpoint there. So.
And just to clarify for people that may remember, and you probably don't, because I don't think you're even old enough to remember, but we have photographs of that library. It was first built in the early 1960s, and it did end at the wall where the stairs are now that go up and down to those two sections at the end. It was much farther from Dartmouth Street where it ended. There were windows along there. And I think that the person proposing this actually asked for some of the diagrams of how that addition was done. So I wasn't sure whether they would want to take that down, take it back to the real original footprint, or keep it in the footprint that most people remember because, it's what's been here for maybe 50 years instead of 60 years. But I think, with anything like this, the more square footage you keep, probably the better. It may end up being a little more U-shaped than it is now to allow for some outdoor seating
Kitchen
space.
and outdoor seating. Yeah, they looks like they want to put some open, nice sliding doors, open it up out there, which will be real attractive, for people to build. A lot of their spaces, have you been to this Canby space?
I have not.
Please take the time and go over there. It is amazing. And I just commented because when I went over there, the way they did the space and they had the canopy come lower, so you still had for the weather, because we live in the rain as most of our seasonal months, but they did, so they had the canopy that came out, but then also the cleanliness and the bathrooms. I was just very impressed with an operator that runs a very clean facility and operations from that standpoint there too. So,
Councilor Blau.
I generally liked this, but I was also concerned about the oversaturation of bar-based businesses in that location, including the fact that we already have a food cart and beverage place. So I wasn't exactly 100% convinced that one more was the way to go, but again, it's better than an empty building. So
I think one of the things to think about, like Portland Avenue, right? Having the bookends, right? Having this amenity at this end down here and having Arlington Tap House, we want to create, people will come and they'll walk down and create the destination. So now we'll start creating that traffic flow, right? And we're doing it organically, space by space, but that's a great start to activating the Portland Avenue area, right? This is a great win for us to be able to start that. And then think about it as we have other businesses or opportunities, with this, think about what we could do with the diner across the street, or not the diner, but like the old gas station, right? That could be really programmed for a really active corner. And remember back to your downtown plan, how do we activate that area was going to kind of be the pedestrian plaza area, right? So this is a great anchor for us to have on that corner end down there.
And I can tell you, I'm really glad you asked that question, because if you go to the Oregon City site, you have Oregon City Brewery. And recently I talked to a customer that goes there frequently. And what Oregon City Brewery does, they brew their own beer. So it's not just beer. It is like they're pushing the envelope. So people that really like to go and taste beers, they've got, 20 taps. I do not drink beer, but I hear that it is the next level. And then across the street in Oregon City Brewery, you have a bajillion food carts and cocktails. So people go back and forth, and people that like those high-end craft beers attend that site regularly, and people that like cocktails and the different food carts. So you have a multitude of opportunities for food carts. I would think, being good business people, they wouldn't have the same ones. And frankly, if you walk down Oregon City Main Street, you've got a multitude of restaurants. That's why people go. Sometimes I go to Nebbiolo's, sometimes I go to Renee's, sometimes I go to McMinniman's. And I always stay and poke around the little local retail shops.
Right.
You know, I don't want to eat the same thing every time. And so, like John said, you've got one on one end and one on the other, and people will congregate in between. So personally, I haven't found that to be a difficult problem in Oregon City, and they are literally across the street from each other. And fortunately here, there's quite a bit of space.
Yeah, I went to the Oregon City one. I didn't make it down to Canby, but I did
It's
notice that there,
lovely.
that there's
Well-
quite a, yeah, and I guess, you can give the argument that that builds foot traffic and gives people choices and, and all of that is great. I just want to make sure that, we're not oversaturating our downtown with the.
Well, and really the saying, if you build it, they will come. And like John said, if you do something with that little space across the street, we could really use a really super cool ice cream shop. There are plenty of little spots in this town. I mean, Milwaukee, what I've heard, I haven't verified it, but the old, it used to be a 50s diner and then they filled it full of antique stuff that nobody wanted to buy. That's being cleared out and it's going to be a burger joint. So they'll have Mexican food. They'll have a 50s diner. They're going to have a tea shop. Who wouldn't want to go down there for that? So we're very excited to have it.
Councilor Huckabee.
Thank you. I'll be completely honest, my heart is not in this proposal. Is it exciting? We get to do something with the property? Yeah. I don't think we are utilizing it in the best capacity that we could have. I know there's only one opportunity here. I just feel like that could have been something more. And I do want to echo Councillor Blaug's concern. If my math is right, we are now going to have at least 5 drinking establishments in a 3 to 4 block. You are talking about the 2 in Oregon City that are right across the street from each other. I would say there's 2 that are dive bars, so that has a certain clientele in there. And then Gladstone's at the end in Arlington. So I do think it's an oversaturation of drinking establishments, in my opinion. I don't know if I support it 100% yet. So we'll see if I get there.
Yeah, something else to add at the Canby Beer Library, they have a soda fountain making area for children. And in this proposal, there's arcade games and a space for kids to have a gathering spot as well. So I believe that those types of elements, I told my management today in our staff meeting, mocktails are very popular right now. And so I think that we can incorporate some of those comments with him if we move forward with this proposal to try to make that more of a family-friendly establishment if there's concern about the alcohol.
One more quick question. Am I understanding that the owners of Oregon City Brewery are going to be running this establishment?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Mitchell, you had another question or comment?
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, and even if I can even ask this, someone tell me if I can't. So I used to work in this building. So we were always told that the basement staff area, not the big room basement, but the long hallway area wasn't very seismatic, I guess the word is. So is that going to be utilized? Is that okay? Do we evaluate all those kind of things?
That'll be up to the developer to do all that once
Okay.
we start in a development
Okay.
agreement. So unless you want, that's a big burden for a city to take on to do a seismic study. I think, you're at a good place. You have a known, there's a couple things I would say is that you want to think about as a council is like, what's important in a development agreement is making sure you have someone that has the financial capacity to do the project, right? That checks the box. Have they done this and are they a good operator in other communities? That checks the box too. That's very important. A lot of times I talk, you'll get a development proposal and Councilor Labonte talked about it. It'll look a lot like AI written. Sometimes I call it, you get a developer all hat and no cattle. They don't have the experience. They don't have the funds and the ability to operate it and take care of it. And tonight, I think it's important that the council consider that because you have this development company here that meets all those boxes. To Councilor Huckabee's point about, yes, we do have some dive bars. I'll give you a case, Oregon City, Kathy and I talked about it, used to be a dive bar area. And over the years, that's changed, right? This is an opportunity to think about as we work in this urban renewal district, creating some new types of grants to help change the facade, help work with those property owners. Some of those people will transition with time, and we can help kind of change that dichotomy on Main Street there. I understand your point there. But as people come in, change sometimes is hard to accept, but the change of younger families come in and people start seeing and understanding these are some things they're going to have to do or change the operations, right? And we see that in cities that we work with on their main streets, having that dichotomy and change and having good actors. I think it's fortunate we have a really good actor. We pushed this out to, over 5,000 brokers. We pushed it out to NAOP, to ULI, and to have a chosen developer here to be able to move forward that can meet those boxes. I think it's important for you guys to consider there from some point there too.
Well, I did my homework over the weekend. I told my wife I was going to take her out to lunch and didn't tell her where we were going. And we went to the Canby Beer Library.
Oh.
And it was a pretty cold, not quite rainy day, but you really get the feel for how a space can be opened up. And I think it had indoor heaters in an outdoor part of it and plenty of tables in front, plenty of food cart choices. That's not the same model here. They're talking about one food cart style kitchen, but not a multitude of individual food carts for different menu items. But it was, I thought, a great experience and clearly a different vibe than I'll use the term that's been used already, the dive bar vibe. I always wonder why there's no windows on those places on Portland Avenue. It's like, that's where you go to sort of hide away and drink. And this kind of a place, I mentioned a couple of years ago, articles I was reading about just people's lack of social connection with each other in our societies. It's part of what came out of COVID. It's part of from working at home and not being in a workplace with other people. And people want to get out and connect with their neighbors. And this would be an opportunity to do that. And that was the vibe that I got from visiting the place. And I watched a TV news show where they did a little segment about this place when it first opened. And one of the things, I'm not a beer drinker either. I can't even tell Coke from Pepsi, let alone, one beer from another. But one of the things that they had to sort of keeping with the library theme was they had a little plastic tray that was sort of shaped like a big book, except on the top of it, it had 4 little holes in it, which were the right size for these little small beer glasses for a flight, like a wine tasting. And if you want to go in there and say, well, give me a sample of 4 different kinds of beer so I can know one from the other. People are into that these days. They enjoy that. And they also want a place where they can take kids. And there were a lot of children in there the day that my wife and I went. They were well behaved. They were connected. It was not an atmosphere full of people that were drunk or anything like that. It felt like a family atmosphere business. As we talked about this in advance, I shared with some of the people, boy, what if they could really specialize in zero alcohol beer, in mocktails, in some of these zero proof cocktails, because that is a growing trend. And I noticed when I went into the place where they had the taps, and I think they had 37 taps at the Canby Library, they did have some non-alcoholic beer options and a home-brewed non-alcoholic root beer option as well. So I think it does cater to not just people that are serious hard drinkers, but people who want a social experience that isn't dependent so much on the alcohol, but it has that as a component. So I think for all the reasons you've described here, it could be a real good thing. And you kind of picked up on the whole idea of it being a catalyst for more development and more connection and more reason for people to get into that neighborhood. What we have here, I think from their staff, Mr. Morrow himself completed the paperwork that has the preliminary deal terms. Usually we get contracts that our own attorneys have reviewed and explored and gone over. So how much are we committed to these particular terms, Administrator Betts?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's part of the proposal. And tonight, you're not taking any action, but if I see head nods to keep moving forward, we would come back to you at March and you would direct staff to negotiate a development agreement. And we would also take public input at that time.
Okay, so it would be a back and forth negotiation between the developer and the city.
Correct.
And not just a one-sided thing. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear again. In the interest of transparency, we don't let somebody come in and dictate the terms to us. We kind of work with them on this. So, Councilor Huckabee.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I just want to comment on the, for one, you had mentioned the book, right?
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
different, well, one of the elements of this, which I think is kind of interesting, is using the old bookshelves as part of the actual bar itself. So I thought that was kind of a nifty idea, and I'll get the other one. All right.
Thank you. You might not be able to answer this, and that is completely okay. Mayor Milch mentioned a food cart kitchen, which signals to me that they're not actually serving food like inside. Like that's the caveat to being able to sell alcohol is there's this little food cart kitchen.
That would kind of be worked out more in a development agreement. Way it looks is if you've seen these food carts, I don't know if you've looked at them lately, but go down and look at the ones in Arlington. They're just amazing it costs a lot to build a kitchen. So a kitchen can run anywhere from like $250,000 to $500,000 trying to put in a kitchen, right? So what it looks like what they're bringing in is a kitchen mobile unit that would sit there they would utilize to have like appetizers or certain amenities within the beer hall area is what it looks like from that standpoint there.
And that differs a little bit from how it is at the
At the
one in
Canby,
Canby.
yeah.
The Canby one does have 6 or 8 different food
down there.
carts. Yeah.
Mhm.
Delicious food, by the way. We ordered from a couple of them and they were great. You remembered your other comment?
Sure, and it was my impression that I don't believe that these folks would restrict others from eating, let's say, a pizza there from the pizza place or a sandwich from our coffee shop. So
Yeah.
it's I think that community space in those tables is not going to be exclusively for their diners. It's going to be kind of for anybody to come in, which I think is interesting and probably good in a lot of ways. And it is important as we move, if this does move along and we move towards March, the developer, they're going to do more of their due diligence is my understanding, and they might find things that deter them from this project or that do change rates and things like that. So I think there's still more to come there. But I just wanted to comment on that.
Councilor Garland.
So I just wanted to say, there's actually been a couple of times. So we went to a Clackamas County dinners at a place in West Lynn. And although they catered in on that night, their regular 7-day a week is the food truck that sits out back. There's one up in Oregon City that we did a makeshift meeting after going out to Canby for something. And they too had the same type of thing that they had a couple of food carts with. So it's engaging other businesses within one space. And I appreciate that kind of thing. And then Sahali has a food cart now. That's really good food. Those are some good burritos. So that's kind of a fun place to go to. So I appreciate that open space thought. I think that could be just used in a million different ways for our community. So
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the Mercantile, I believe he plays in a band. You could close that back parking lot off. The Brew has an outdoor seating back there. So there's potential to create a community gathering space there and expanding on all of those things.
If I just may say, the reason why we're here at all is because the word park was in the, tied in with that property is my understanding. So I think the idea of having it, some people want to park there. So having it open to the community in such a way, I think kind of, speaks to the park idea to some extent.
Okay, other comments? You're all in? All right, are we hearing nods? And so, yeah, I think, maybe all of us had a little vision of what we would have liked to have seen there. And, it doesn't always meet it, but I appreciate Councilor Devontae's observation. And I've heard this from another former coffee shop owner too, that when Starbucks came in, at first there was concern, oh no, they're going to put us out of business. And instead, what it did was it got a whole bunch of people used to going out for a cup of coffee every day. And it was a boom for the coffee shops that existed. And, but I think the community value goes back to, kind of what I alluded to earlier. I brought a book with me. It's called The Great Good Place. And the subtitle is Cafes, Coffee Shops, Community Centers, Beauty Parlors, General Stores, Bars, Hangouts, and How They Get You Through the Day, written by a guy named Ray Oldenburg. This is an autographed copy that I got more than 25 years ago when I went to a book signing of his. And he introduced a concept called the third place. And the first place is home, where we have our life with our family. And our second place for most people is the workspace, where you go and you do your job. But we need another place. We need a place where, as the song goes, where everybody knows your name. And whether it's the bar on Cheers or the diner on Seinfeld or the coffee shop on Friends, we've come to know the value of connecting with other people through that. And Michelle Prusso is here tonight. The community center in our community performs some of that function for some people. I hear stories about people who lost a spouse or had to move away and come to a new location. And the community center was a place where they made connections and formed a bond in this community. And I think for a different kind of group of people, this place will also perform some of that function. And so I'm excited that we can offer that. And as far as the other project, it did include housing and a little bit of the element of helping to support and incubate local businesses. We have a couple of local properties that may be coming for sale soon in this community, where a project like that could still go. And just to know that we're on some people's radar out there as a community that would welcome some growth, some new opportunities from housing, some greater choices for people to live here and connect here, and have a community that feels pretty self-contained and connected. That's a good place to be. We've been talking about economic development for a long time, and I think this kind of gets us there. So, we're not taking really a vote or an action tonight, but I think you're getting a sense that we want to move forward with this and see how we can do.
Absolutely. I think we have what we need for tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to give a shout out to the group that did all this work. It's a lot of meetings, you're giving up a lot of your personal time. Go out and have lunch on your own dime so you can check out places like that. So to that group and both of you, thank you so much for doing that for us.
We had a great time.
Yeah, and thank you.
Andrew made it very fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, John, for your work in this and your experience in this kind of work. Okay, I mentioned that Michelle Prusso is here tonight. The next item does involve her and City Administrator Betts on an update on the Community Festival.
Yeah, so tonight we thought that I would allow our community center manager, Michelle Prusso, give you a high overview of where we are in the planning stages with the Gladstone Community Festival. As you know, the city is taking over this event. And I just wanted to say that Ms. Prusso and Haley Kratz have done a fantastic job thus far on getting us well prepared for the community festival. So with that, I believe we have a short PowerPoint that Michelle's going to take us through.
Okay. On this side.
All right, wish me luck here. Can you guys see it on your screens?
Yes.
Oh,
Hang on.
well, while she's working that out, I just want to thank you guys for having me here tonight. This has been an honor to me. I'm passionate. You guys all know how passionate I am on community functions, bringing the community together. So I want to thank my boss and you guys for entrusting this and entrusting the city into letting us do or having us do this. It's been great. Ta-da! Thank you, Tammy. All right. So we just put, again, like Jackie said, we put together, or Haley put together a lot of this slideshow. So we could just give you guys an update here tonight. We wanted to go through the progress that we've made. We're starting from scratch, so I don't know what just happened. But we've been working with community partners. We wanted to let you guys know what we've confirmed and what our next steps are. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you all know, the community festival is usually or has always been the first weekend in August. This weekend or this year in August, we're going to go ahead and start it on July 31st. It's a Friday with the kickoff of the vendor market and parade on August 1st, and then rounding it out on August 2nd. So we've really encapsulated this into the full weekend experience. We'll kind of talk about that in a minute. We started this off with Jackie having a great idea, Administrator Betts, sorry guys, having a great idea about the logo contest to kind of get the community involved in this. And so that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Mayor, for selecting the winner. And feedback from the community has been great on having this open to the community, getting the community involved, and people seem to like the logo. We really want this to be an inclusive citywide participation in a lot of different ways. We also think this is going to bring in a lot of economic and community engagement, and will have a lot of impact here in Gladstone. And this really is an intergenerational event in Gladstone. It's our longest held festival. Over 150 years, I believe, this festival has been going on, give or take. And I love this tradition and excited to continue this. Next slide, please. Jackie, jump in whenever you want, if you want to. So Friday, we're going to, what we've kind of done, all these things have been in place for the most part, but we pulled everything together so that we're working under, it's okay, Tammy. We're working under everyone, all our community partners are working together now. So we've reached out to all, pickleball, the reunion, everyone who's helped with the parade, and car show, and made sure that we're all coordinating this event. So this can really be a citywide event. People, tourists and community members alike, they can come in to Gladstone and feel like this is a weekend event here in Gladstone. So Friday, we will have the pickleball tournament like per normal. Thank you. And then we'll have Movie in the Park. Again, we'll be sponsoring it, but it'll be hosted by Gladstone Oak Lodge Rotary. A fun twist, again, that we would like to do this year is have a survey go out and have the community vote on what movie they want to see. We really want to get, again, community involvement and find out, what do you want to watch? So we're going to be launching that within the next couple of weeks to kind of get the community's feedback. And then that's the movie we'll be playing. Saturday, we'll have the parade. We have a lot of different people who are coming together to help coordinate all these things too. We'll have the parade, we'll have the vendor market. We have a new idea of creating a kids village that's going to be working with the school district. They've allowed us to use the field next to Max Patterson Park so that we can have a full kids village over there. This is where families can come. They can have their watermelon eating contest, bounce houses. We're going to have a stage entertainment, all that kind of stuff, pie contest. And we're also introducing a brand new event, which is going to be a dog show. So we have a completely different group of people, right, that are going to bring their dogs now to partake in this dog show. And again, these are community members who are coming out of the woodworks and helping with coordinate these events.
I believe the dog show is the Fur Baby Fest organizer that was at Meldrum Bar Park last year. So she's the one that's going to be organizing the dog show.
Correct. And we will need, so just keep this in mind, judges for different things during the festival. Dog show is one of them, pie contest and parade. So have that on your radar. Then the beer garden and bingo, which we've always had. Rotary will be taking that on this year. And hopefully we'll get a good sponsor to help them with that. We will have live stage performances. So our vision is to not only have the adult or beer garden stage, but also hopefully to have, or the dog show, to have a stage for the kids village as well. And we really do want this to feel like a kids play area or interactive area in this kids village over in the fields. So we'll have children's performers and demonstrations for children's activities, children's vendors. And again, the pickleball tournament will be going on. And then that evening, we've brought in, again, these are all things that have been going on, but we've just brought it all together so it can be cohesive with the city. The reunion, the all schools reunion or all class reunion. And we will be helping them with live music for that night. And just making sure that's a really fun event for the reunion. So that rounds out Saturday. And then, of course, the Happy Days car show, which will be on Sunday. And we anticipate this is going to be the biggest, best car show that has been so far. So, and if you guys are familiar, it went all the way down to the fire.
Way beyond.
Almost down to the community center is where they're blocking off roads.
So we're anticipating that it's going to go all the way to the high school this year. We're also looking at helping them figure out a cruise that they can do, and then also entertainment, music, and some different ways to help the businesses interact with the car show as well. This is our map that we're kind of working at. Playing around with right now. We propose bringing the beer garden down where the stage is, where we do music on the greens, and utilizing along the sidewalk, running that fence all the way down towards the splash pad across that sidewalk, and fencing off that whole flat area down there for tables, the reunion, the stage, the beer garden. And that's the slope where you see the yellow. And so families don't necessarily need to even be in the beer garden to watch the stage performances in the beer garden. They can choose to be in or out. And then having all our vendors up on top. And then we don't have a map of it yet, but to your left or to my left would be the fields where it's going to be the kids' village.
May I ask one question about the Kids Village?
Yeah.
I know on some, sometimes it's insanely hot during this event.
Yes.
And like the sun is blazing right down. Is there any consideration for shade for the kiddos and stuff like that?
Yes, currently working on a very, very large tent and working with Mr. Reuter here in Gladstone to add misters to all our tents.
Awesome. Thank you.
So fingers crossed there's a lot of things in the works that, I don't want to get anybody excited about yet, but we're definitely pulling all that in. Because yes, we go to it. I live here. I'm invested in the festival. So,
Could you go back and show where the city's booth and the police will probably likely
Yes.
be? I think Tammy has to show with the mouse, but is it 62, 69?
It is. So underneath the splash pad, right over there, exactly. So if you guys remember, city building or city booths and a lot of your nonprofits have been where we're proposing that the beer garden goes. We'd like to move those over by the splash pad, have the informational booth, city booth, police, nonprofit, library, fire. And then there's a parking area right over there. So the fire trucks and police can easily have their rigs lined up over there in a safe area off the street where that parking lot is, and have everything over there. So
also please be thinking it would be nice to have an elected official for a couple of hours at the booth. I'm typically there. We've done that in the past, but we are going to have a city booth, combine lost and found information. So be thinking about wanting to spend a couple of hours there.
yes, all the help. So participation and community collaboration. We really do feel like this is a full community involvement. We have up currently on the city's website, you can go to under community festival. If you haven't gone there, I implore you to check that out. Haley's done an amazing job on making sure all the forms are on there. So you can go in there right now and volunteer for, the slide or for cleanup or the parade. There's a bunch of different volunteer opportunities that are in there already. We have all the sponsor information, and it's really uniform, right? You can go to one place now and you can be a vendor, you can be a sponsor, you can sign up for the dog show, you can any of these things. And we will keep adding to the website as we add things into the community festival as we start confirming a lot of these things. So partnerships and operations, we are working closely with Public Works. Those misters are going to have to hook up somewhere. Police, and all our community partners that are going to be helping out with all the different aspects of the weekend, so we can really make this feel like a weekend-long event here in Gladstone. Hopefully, bringing in thousands of people. Again, helping out with local businesses, and our big focus is going to be on accessibility, a positive visitor experience, as well as our community members. And so what's next? We're just finalizing our layouts, permits, notifications. We really want to finalize all those stage performers and our schedule. We're going to need to recruit volunteers and then roll it out. And really just then the fun part comes with social media, our newsletter, getting the community excited about what we've come up with, our idea of what the community festival is going to look like. So.
And I do believe that Rotary's still coming to council for approval for selling the alcohol piece of that. So you will see that in the future.
Yes, dear future, they will be coming to request that. Questions?
Councilor Farley, go ahead.
I have a question. I've never heard anyone be mad, but a lot of grumbling from the local community with the parking situation. Has there been anything that can be done to maybe alleviate a little bit of that in the outlying streets?
So that's all open parking. Jackie could talk on this if she'd like, but I live here and I just know as a community member that I'm going to have to drive up and down the streets and not block anyone's driveway and find somewhere to park. I moved here 13 years ago from Portland, and this is nothing new for me. Sometimes we park. If I go to dinner in the Clinton neighborhood, I'm parking 6 blocks away from a restaurant type of deal.
But we do have to do notification to surrounding neighbors, and we can have those conversations. Or if you know specific areas where there's concerns, we can certainly work through that to try to improve it.
I just know that if you go about 1 block around, because I live just 1 block away, it gets a little rough. And so I've listened to my neighbors complain, but they're also walking with me to the festival. We love the festivals. There's no complaints, but it can get a little weird when people you don't know are piling right in front of your home and they're there all day. So I was just curious if maybe there's like overflow at the high school or the kindergarten with like maybe a little trolley or something, just a little bit to alleviate the burden slightly. That was my curiosity.
I think that's a great suggestion, and we could definitely look into that. For the community center, that's what we do. We either pick up all the seniors in our bus, or have them meet us at the community center, and then we tram them to the festival. So thank you for that suggestion. If you have any others, shoot them my way.
I have questions about vendors. It was been shared with me in the past, the cost for a vendor registration has been quite restrictive to certain, people who just go create stuff in their house. And, I don't remember what the registration has been previously, but it's been restrictive. So I don't know if we've taken a look at that.
So we didn't come away from Rotary with any of their forms. We as in Haley mostly, created everything from scratch. We played a lot off of so as you guys know, we do the winter market and then the spring market at the community center. We played a lot with that, and then used a lot of that verbiage of how we do it at the community center. So I'm not sure exactly what you're speaking about, but hopefully that's not the case. We feel like our fees are affordable. First of all, we want to make them affordable. We're not discriminating against any vendor. We are open to all vendors, and except, we have a list of weapons and such.
I'm only referring to the community festival vendor registration price, nothing at the community center.
Okay.
The price.
The price? Yeah.
For vendor registrations, yes.
Do you know what it was before?
No.
I want to say it was $125. Ours is $75.
I would love.
And we did research other cities that do vendor fairs to make sure that we're being very fair with that price.
Yeah.
But we do know that it's less than what it has been.
Yes, it was, I believe, and that price, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was in the hundreds, 125 or something like that. And it didn't include, like if you wanted power or electricity, there was add-ons and stuff like that. No, ours is more aligned with what we do at the community center. It's an affordable rate. And then also, we're just processing it the same.
I believe the parade application is also
There-
less.
yes.
Very much less.
Well, it's a donation.
Mhm.
So if you want to be in the parade, just, you can, if you want to donate a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. We just want people to come out and get involved and be in the parade and come to the festival. And hopefully we have a lot of localized residents who, we already have quite a few vendors that have already signed up and are really excited. So I
I
hope
think we're
that's,
getting a car for the mayor too, to ride in the parade
Yeah.
this year. So he
low
doesn't
rider.
have to walk.
Hydraulics.
is that what you want? Hydraulics?
That's what he needs.
Uh,
Hey, if I could just say, thank you for bringing for like in a time where everything is getting more and more expensive to to have that conscious decision to make it less expensive for the entry to let people into these vending spots. It's just, I think that speaks volumes to how our city wants to operate. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, and just so you guys, this is our first year, and if we do we are fully plan on getting community feedback after this is done. We really do want to know how the community felt about it, what they want to see, what we could change, what we could do different if we do choose to move forward and continue doing this. So yeah, we fully plan. This is kind of the starter year. I think it's going to be great, but it's very fluid as we move forward through the years. These are not set in stone. We can change things if it's not working for our community.
Well, I'll give you an example because we reined it in this year, but get to Councillor Farley's question about the shuttle and all of that. You know, if we do some kind of Civil War football down at the high school track before the vendors fair, you're bringing people to park down there and then come down there. So those are things that we're thinking about adding in the future. But this is the first year. We want to get it right. But I can't say enough how much Michelle and Haley have put into making sure this is a continued success in Gladstone.
And thank you to Tammy, who makes sure that we're doing everything by the book. So
My second question was about last year. I had asked if the Rotary Club was going to advertise in different areas than they had previously, so we could get a variety of vendors at the community festival. And that answer was no. So have we extended beyond what they were advertising?
I have no idea what or how Rotary, I'm just putting that out there. I don't know. And we didn't take away a lot from them because we want this to be our festival, right? So with that said, yes, not only do I have a list of vendors that I send an email out to that goes to 200 plus vendors from all around Oregon. We post it on PDX vendors sites. I actually was at, my goodness, the Valentine's night market or Valentine's Day. And I'm a nerd and was talking to the vendors that were there, handing out my card if they wanted to be vendors. So yes, to answer your question, we are reaching out across social media to a magnitude of different sites that promote vendors where they can look to be a vendor. Yeah.
But $18 lobster rolls might be a little high for what we're looking for too. So we're trying to keep that in mind, family-friendly food at an affordable cost.
I will tell you, most of the food vendors that normally do it have already applied because they want to make sure that they have a spot. So we're going to have to navigate that too.
Well, I love both of your answers, so thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Councilor Garland.
I just had, when you say that you're working with other people, so the pickleball is still taking care of their own tournament. It's just part of the overall promotion.
Correct. So when I say we're pulling everything together, we're making sure on our city website, when someone goes on there or our city social media, they're going to see a full weekend experience here in Gladstone. So say someone from outside of Gladstone or even a resident of Gladstone, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, this is a weekend long event. We can go watch this pickleball tournament on Friday. We can go to the movies. We can go to the Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast. We are taking all these different groups that have operated separately and not really had a lot of coordination together and communication. We have spoke with all of them, pulled them all together. None of them are talking to each other, but they're all talking to us and making this one city event. But then that workload is still on them for those different events.
Got it.
So making it a little easier for us. They know what they're doing. But we're just puppeting.
Yeah.
Is that the right?
Facilitating. And then I had one other question. Do we have enough picnic tables around the city to put picnic tables down in that kids area so that anybody, wherever, because that always seems to be getting a seat to eat your food if you're not in the beer garden was always really difficult.
Challenging. Noted. I should have brought a pencil. Thank you. Yes, we do plan on having seating in the kids' village,
Okay.
as well as the beer garden. So, yep.
And then that was it. I'm just excited. Go change my calendar because I'm fairly certain I marked it already for the next weekend because it was usually the first full weekend. And so I will get it changed and I will.
That was of much debate. So.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think the last time that the first did fall on a Saturday, we did start on the 31st. This was about 11 years ago, I think. So there is some precedent for running it this way, but it's something that you do have to decide well in advance in order to get these people, because I was told that, the vendors used to sign up as early as October, November, sometimes almost a year ahead. And so you definitely have to set the date to plan for everybody's schedule. You're right. As you mentioned earlier, we've had some form of festival going on around this time of the year in Gladstone for well over 100 years. It was the Chautauqua Festival long ago, which was completely different than what this is. And in the 40s and 50s, they called it the Fair of Fun, and it was more carnival type atmosphere. And I think that's when they had the go-kart races down High Street, and then they made that sharp turn onto Gloucester or something, whichever, Hereford coming down there, and people would roll over onto the hay bales and everything. So, different times. And then for a while, they took the name Chautauqua back, but it was never, the Sunday school teacher continuing education that was, it was always really a community festival. And so over the years, it's evolved and changed, and we've gotten to some great places. And it would not be a Michelle Prusso event if there were not that element of, here is something really good. How can we tweak it and make it just a little bit better? But in a year when maybe the community is concerned that, we got completely different management here, it's going to be all different. I think you've come up with a good balance of a few little changes that are going to enhance things without throwing out all the old stuff. It's going to seem very familiar to people. It's going to have something that people will say, oh, this is new and this is really cool to have that. And then you're already thinking about how are we going to engage the community, found out what we did well, what we need to improve on, or what we could do better next year. And you're looking forward to making it, again, continual improvement. So I've always appreciated that about your style, Michelle. You really think about those things and want to make a great event an even better event. And from what I've heard tonight, it sounds like you haven't felt too restricted to do things the way that the previous group in charge did them, yet you're balancing that with a need to preserve the most important elements that people look forward to. All the class reunion folks are excited about this coming back again. And the car show is great and growing. And the parade, of course, you can't do it without a parade. It's going to be the festival we've known and loved. And under new management, it looks like it's going to be just as good or better. So I'm grateful to you, to the city staff who've thought about these ideas, to the folks at Rotary who share their notes and thoughts. And so it makes sure there was a smooth transition. And it's really exciting. Yeah. So we'll work on some of those issues. The parking issue, maybe shuttles, I think that's a great suggestion. Emphasize that if the weather's right, it's really a walkable event for folks. And we'll try to get, and we might even fill the hotel for people who say, hey, this is a weekend event. Let's go spend the weekend in Gladstone, and we'll stay at the hotel there. And we might even qualify for some tourist money.
You kind of laugh about that, but I honestly could see this in the future as a tourist.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just our car show alone brings in people from all over.
It's tough to justify the use of tourism dollars for something called a community festival. However, the car show, John LaGarza and Michelle and I are going to monitor that this year. That brings in thousands of people. If we wanted to expand on that event, we could use transient lodging tax dollars for that. So we're very excited to work with them this year on that.
Well, any more questions or comments from council members? Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jackie and Tammy and Haley, who's not here, but will hear that we are very happy with the work she's doing. All right, that brings us to our last item on our agenda, the City of Gladstone's communication guide.
Can I request a
Oh.
5-minute break?
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute break. This is a pretty long meeting for a work session. So let's take a little break and then we'll shift gears and come back to the communications guide.
Okay.
Okay, we are back to look at item 3 on our agenda, City of Gladstone Communication Guide. Michelle Prusa, our Community Center Manager, is still here, along with Jackie Betts, City Administrator.
Yeah, and again, I want to commend Haley Kratz and Michelle. They took the lead from a staff perspective on this. We've kept you updated through the City Council Goal Report. But we actually brought in SSW Consulting, and they're the same firm that helped us create our City Council goals. So the benefit of that was they knew when we had all of our conversations of what we were trying to achieve with one voice, how can we get better community engagement in Gladstone. So what you're going to see tonight is our product, which is the Gladstone's Communications Guide. And Michelle is going to walk you through a PowerPoint of the highlights that we think are important to share.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Yeah, like Jackie was saying, you're going to really hear that saying, one city, one voice, right? We want to be that one voice to the community. So Gladstone's communication guide is really to strengthen that connection through thoughtful communication, internal and externally. And that's what we're going to go over. And why does this even matter? Well, first of all, it was one of your goals. So we wanted to check that off. And besides that, it's very important to enhance that engagement and have the sense of belonging with the community as a form of communication when we're reaching everyone in our community. And then most importantly, I think, is it builds trust and awareness within our community. So if we have one voice and we're unified, we're going to have that trust in our community members with us. The whole purpose of this communications guide was to have a clear, consistent, and inclusive communications that strengthens trust both within our organization and within the community we serve. So it's the whole purpose we had SSW put this together. Again, one city, one voice. Why does this matter? Because this shows our shared values and tone. It's still, even though it's a guide, it has that flexibility within the guide but it still has that common framework. And then it just puts out that coordinated message from the city.
We also had stakeholders from the police department and public works involved with administration and the community center put work into this. So it just wasn't Haley and Michelle. They took the lead, but we also had other individual employees contributing to this.
Thank you. Our guiding principles with this guide, we really wanted to make sure when we were not only meeting with when we had this meeting with our stakeholders from all the different departments, but with the consulting group, we conveyed that we wanted to make sure that there was transparency, accuracy in our messaging, being inclusive and accessible to everyone in the community, that we had a shared collaboration between council and all the departments, and that we were being responsive with the community. How do we accomplish that, basically? And that's what they helped us with when they built this. This guide is for internal and external communication. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to kind of go through it, but it has not only an internal guides for staff clarity, ideas of better coordination between staff members with different platforms that we could be using to make sure that our messages are across all the different departments. And then just to kind of build that morale within the walls. of Gladstone. But it also really talks and has some really good examples and framework for external communication. And what does that look like? How we're communicating with our residents here in Gladstone, our businesses, making sure we have timely and accurate updates across all departments. And then that we have, and what does that build? It builds a stronger community connection if we have all those things. If all departments are putting out the same message, city council included, the community looks at that and says, you know, this is what it is, right? This is the clear message. It's the same message with the same tone coming from everyone in the city. That was really important for external communication. So how does the council's role play into this? We'd like you guys to have a shared commitment to the clear, accurate information. The alignment between the city officials and the messaging with public communication, and just your support. So what's next? We'd like you guys to really look through this. We want to finalize the guide. We invite any of your feedback or questions, and we'll continue to collaborate within. And then we'd like to roll it out internally and move forward with it.
Councilor Blau, go ahead.
This is going to sound really silly, but one of the, so we're on page 3-9. I was just looking at the accent typeface, and that looks like cursive to me, which I read perfectly clearly, but I don't know that a lot of younger people read it clearly. And so I was going to maybe urge you to pick a font that isn't cursive.
Thank you.
Councilor Labonte.
I just want to highlight the what seems to be the commitment to the morale boost of like building up our people here, the people that work so hard for our city all the time, and putting them in the spotlight. So I think amongst all of this, that's just, I think, so important for a morale boost, which sometimes we all need a little bit to kind of keep us going and excited about the work that we're doing. So thanks for being mindful of that.
We're doing a lot of great work, as you see in the monthly report. So it's taking those stories and maybe even doing short 10, 15-second videos if employees are willing to do that. And like you said, just boost their morale, recognize the work they're doing, but also it helps for people in the community to see the work that we're doing.
Councilor
Thank you. I see so many initiatives in here that mirror what corporate America is doing right now, and it works well at that level. It's a morale booster. We bring people together. The Teams channels, or the quick check-ins. It really boosts morale on my team particularly, and helps with collaboration. So good job.
Thank you. It was, like Administrator Betts said, it was really a team effort. We had a lot of stakeholders in this, and then we had the professional advisement. So it was a really fun project to get to work through.
Looks great.
Yeah, having the templates is very helpful, and the tools. Management is all on board with this. So the next steps for us, unless we hear back from you in the next week or two with individual comments, is that we'll finalize it and then we'll implement within certain departments, because we really want to work on the social media aspect of this as well. So.
And if you guys get a chance to look through, if it makes you nervous or anything with the social media, there's a lot of verbiage in there that covers probably a lot of your questions. What if this happens? Then there's, this. So each department will be able to pick up this guide and read through this or reference it at any time and say, well, I'm dealing with this in a communications point. And they will have a clear understanding of exactly where we stand as a city of how we'd like to handle that.
Yeah, we do have a community comment policy that we will be posting ahead of time so people know that we're monitoring comments, and if something is prohibited content, and we'll list what's prohibited, that we have the right to remove that.
But we
Have you-
also want to open up discussion as well within the community, right? But just in a respectful way.
Have you cleared that with Chad and our legal department about what a city, how much a city can and can't restrict public involvement or public speech on our own?
So on page 3-53, it shows you the community comment standards. We haven't specifically had this reviewed with the legal counsel. These are recommendations, and those are pretty high, right? Profanity, sexual content, discriminatory. Those are ones that we know we can, but just removing a comment because you didn't like what somebody said, we have to retain that now.
Yeah.
And so we feel like the city's social media moderation policy is where the heaviest oversight and implementation needs to be made before we just go live with allowing comments on there. So, and it takes staff oversight, and we don't have a dedicated staff person to monitor it. So that's why if we're going to do this, we've got to be prepared to have certain staff people monitoring what's being said. We don't have access to Gladstone Chit Chat. We can post on Gladstone next door, but we don't get to see those private conversations as a government entity. So we can control, though, the city's social media pages.
And just to kind of add to that, the consulting company in these moderation standards these are government standards. And so if you look through them, it goes through legally what content may or may not be removed or hidden, and it has all the bullet points. So we don't have to wonder, these are for government, specifically this was written, and what could be removed. And then it goes into, well, there's a grayer area, content requiring a clarifying comment. So then we're required to clarify, put out a comment back and get a clarification before removing. And then there's comments that we have to post a warning, hey, let's redirect this into what we were talking about. And we post that warning. If it continues to go down a negative road, then we can remove it. So it really does lay out all those steps that we need to look at before, of how conversations are going on social media, and gives us that guideline if we can remove it or not, or what we need to do.
But we're also hoping that the city council will feel comfortable enough tagging information that we've posted to help redirect some of those conversations that are happening that we don't have access to. So we want to make sure that you have the factual information that you can share as well.
Councilor Garland's going to see your light.
I don't have a calendar with me. Can you give me a deadline date on this, on feedback, please?
I would say by March 1st,
March
which
1st.
is, I think, next week.
Okay.
Yes.
If I may ask, with the community comment standards, I could imagine where would something like this play out if, let's say, if a particular counselor were getting called out in a way, or a city employee, are there kind of ways to make it a more general comments and not specific to individuals? How does that play into some of these rules, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so personal attacks are not allowed. So if we saw somebody saying something about a city employee, we would have that side redirect conversation warning with that individual. They can be more generalized, but they have to be careful of not targeting specific people.
And it also needs to be in the, we posted something. Someone can't just jump into a conversation where we're talking about the garden and be like, oh, this guy sucks. they have to stay on topic. So, and that's part of the guidelines. If they're not on topic with what our post is, you're out. You get a warning if you don't follow the warning, like, hey, we're actually talking about a community garden. You should email or come, whatever our response would be. If they continue to do it, then they're just out.
We are actually testing this right now with our police department platform. As you know, our code enforcement officer, she is the one that handles the content there, and they're allowing comments. And so we're testing it to see how it goes with that department.
Good place to test.
I can see the importance of, there are so many different platforms now by which people receive information and share information with one another. We relied on a newsletter for many, many years, and that's the very old school form of one-way communication out. And we know that in our community, there are a number of people who really rely on that as their key means of understanding what's going on in the community. So that I hope that that will continue. And that, again, you talk about this consistency of message, that if something is in the newsletter, you'll see the same news on a social media platform or somewhere else. And also, sometimes people want to be able to go the other direction. I see questions on social media saying, what are they building over on the corner of this street and that street? And some cities have a place where you can go. What's being developed in my community right now? Where have the building permits been issued in my community for something? And you can go on the site and do it. Or you can, they have places where if you take a picture of something with your phone, it has, GIS information on there that some cities have a way where you can take a picture of a pothole, send the picture to the city, and because of the geographical information that's embedded in the picture, the city knows right where to go to fix that pothole. These are not ideas I'm pushing on you right now, but it's great to know that all these different means of communicating back and forth, getting answers to questions that citizens have, getting the word out to the community from the city on important things that people should know about because of a disaster situation or, something else, a police action. I'm really glad we're thinking through this, and the values that you've presented here as a means of doing that, of improving trust in the community, are very important. For some time ago, I was, without my knowledge and choice, assigned the role of being a moderator on one of the local social media platforms. And when I became an elected official, I decided probably shouldn't be doing that anymore, because some people might see it as, an elected official taking a government role, and they'll use the term censoring content. But there's still people, but I stayed on as a moderator so that I could see what other content was being moderated by the people who were active in it, and to stay informed. And when somebody said they cut my comment, I'd be able to say, no, they really didn't. It's on another page. You just don't see it there. Sometimes that happens. But I have a concern about the perception from some in the community that anytime you moderate content on social media, that it's somehow censorship. And for a private social media site that has standards that you must abide by, it isn't government censoring. So it doesn't fit that First Amendment situation. But when it becomes government sponsored content, then we're bordering on that. And for people who want to make an issue of it, it will be something we'll have to learn to deal with. So I'm glad that we're thinking through this, that we're looking at these standards, that we're borrowing them from tried and true models that have worked elsewhere, that we're getting professional guidance on this, because I think it takes us forward on a path to be as open and transparent and trustful as we're seeking to be in the community. Thank you both. Anything else on this topic? I want to pick up on Councilor Levante's comment, because we have employees who have a right to do their job free of harassment in a good working environment. And if it becomes too easy for people to criticize them openly, particularly in a meeting maybe or an event where they're present, we're not keeping up the trust that we have with our employees if we're allowed to let that happen. And I see Councilor Huckabee nodding your head. You know from your own experience in the business community, other places, you have to set these standards and make sure that people feel supported and valued and appreciated and that morale is high. And so I want to be able to have a system by which we can make sure that that always happens. All right. Well, I think that is it for tonight. We have a regular meeting coming up on March 10th at 6:30. We have another work session scheduled for March 24th, 4 weeks from tonight, at 5:30. And I believe that's all. So we are adjourned at 7:12 p.m.